Didn't President, weird all caps, Trump invoke the Resurrection Act? You better look it up. Okay, I had to comment. I originally thought this person was a bot, but I think they might actually be a real MAGA. Or maybe it's actually Donald Trump in my comments because he tends to do the random all caps. Sweetheart, I think you mean Insurrection Act. I know that Donald Trump has the dwindles and he's kind of on his last legs. Didn't he have to have his second annual physical in the last 6 months this past week? He's not really at a position where he needs to be resurrected yet. Although I understand people who worship at the cult of MAGA, they've made a golden calf out of Donald Trump. Maybe they think they can bring him back after he's gone. Maybe they do think there's going to be a bodily resurrection of the decrepit Cheeto. After all, we saw a Republican, what was it, just a day or two ago, say that he's going to try and have the 22nd Amendment overturned so that Donald Trump can serve a third term, which of course is hilarious on so many different levels. No, I know that Donald Trump keeps getting asked by members of the press as to whether or not he would invoke the Insurrection Act. He keeps tossing that term around, and I know that Stephen Miller would love for him to pull that trigger. But here's the thing, you can't just randomly be like, there's an insurrection, I'm gonna use the Insurrection Act. Every time he's talked it up so far, it's been shot down. Now, I made a long video on the Insurrection Act way back in April because we had people who were really panicking over April 5th hands off, thinking that Donald Trump was going to invoke the Insurrection Act if we all turned out in the streets and protested. And that did not happen. That was my first big round of beef with doomers who were trying to tell me if we all turned up on April 5th hands off, that Donald Trump was going to invoke the Insurrection Act. It was going to happen, and that was going to be the beginning of martial law in this country. And then we heard it again around the first No King's Day, right? Where we all showed up and we ruined Donald Trump's birthday. Nobody went to DC to watch his pathetic imitation of a dictator-style military birthday parade where we saw the army engage in malicious compliance. They had to do that parade, but they were marching out of step. There was that squeaky old tank, and we all had a big party around the country to celebrate democracy, to celebrate our rights, and the fact that we have no kings in the United States. And before that event, all of the doomers on social media were like, if we do this, he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. He's permanently staging tanks and the military in Washington, D.C., and this is going to be a military takeover of the entire country immediately after No King's Day. He will invoke the Insurrection Act. And once again, y'all were wrong. Now, what we have seen is the predictable authoritarian creep of Donald Trump. He puts a couple hundred National Guard here. He's trying to do it in Portland. He's trying to do it in Chicago, and the courts are currently holding him back. In fact, here in Portland, Judge Immergut, who's a Trump appointee, she said that none of the criteria for invoking the Insurrection Act had been met, and that we are a nation governed by constitutional law, not martial law. Right? Trump is falsely trying to claim that there is a rebellion here in Portland, that there is a riot. We are seeing Kristi Noem make these bizarre claims that Antifa is having violent riots all over the city. Donald Trump has falsely claimed that the city is on fire. And thousands and thousands and thousands of Oregonians have been sharing pictures and video from around the city to prove what it's actually like here. And there is a 24-hour-a-day camera that is going on the ICE facility on Macadam Avenue. Now, I had a bunch of people in my comments on Facebook who are like MAGA Republicans being like, Portland's a war zone. I bet you don't even go downtown because it's so unsafe at the ICE facility. Bitch, the ICE facility is not in downtown Portland. And I go to the ICE facility and I also go downtown. The only violence that is happening in this city is being committed by ICE against Americans who are trying to exercise their constitutional right to protest the illegal and oppressive actions of our government. The ICE facility is very small. There's typically a couple of dozen kids down there in frog suits, in unicorn suits, in chicken suits, and ICE is brutalizing them on a nightly basis. There are silent prayer vigils down there. There are clergy that go down there at least once a week to lead prayer in front of the ICE building. There are folks who have pajama protests. They show up in their footy PJs and they have breakfast. There's been tea parties down there. There's been a knit-in down there. There's been people down there playing their ukuleles. It's very, very Portland, but none of it meets the criteria for the Insurrection Act. The country is not being invaded by a foreign army. The governor has not requested military deployment. In fact, Portland police Portland mayor and city council, the governor of the state of Oregon have all said that we do not want the military here. It is not necessary. There is no legitimate reason for it. There is no rebellion happening here. And it's frankly embarrassing that Donald Trump is trying to claim that a couple dozen kids in costumes equal a rebellion. It doesn't even equal a riot. I would argue that Trump keeps using this term insurrection because Stephen Miller is whispering it in his ear, and also because members of the media keep bringing it up for him. He recently said, "I hear how wonderful it is. It's not wonderful, it's a disaster. That's almost an insurrection, that place," in reference to my city. Now, I really encourage folks to go look at the Brennan Center for Justice's website, where they list all 30 times that the Insurrection Act has been used in the history of this nation. It will help give you some perspective. And if you want to know if the Insurrection Act has been used against the express wishes of a governor, the last time that was done was by Dwight Eisenhower and then John F. Kennedy, and it was around desegregating schools. It was to uphold the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education ruling. Go read that list on the Brennan Center for Justice's website, and then tell me whether 30 kids exercising their constitutional right to speak up against injustice and the illegal actions of the government, where the city, the local law enforcement, the state, the governor, the attorney general all said that they have it handled. There is no reason for the federal government to get involved. It is not a riot. It's not an insurrection. It's not a problem. See how that compares to the other instances of the use of the Insurrection Act. When we look at would-be authoritarians, they try to claim power that they don't have a legal right to have. They try to break the law, they try to push the boundaries, and then they see how the people react. If they try and do something illegal, authoritarian, an absolute overreach, an infringement upon your rights, and you don't speak up loudly, vigorously, and swiftly against it, they'll say, "Okay, cool, I know I can do this terrible thing and I can get away with it. They won't try and stop me. So now I have moved the needle on what is normal." If Donald Trump tries to invoke the Insurrection Act, we need mass public opposition against it. We know that he's going to try and do illegal shit. He's been doing illegal shit since, well, I was going to say since January, but he's a 34-time convicted felon. So he's been doing it for a long time. So he's going to try and move the needle. He's going to see what he can get away with. Stephen Miller is constantly trying to see what Trump can get away with, what horrible, cruel, illegal things they can do. They're watching to see how you respond. Trump is a known quantity. He's going to try to trample your rights. He's going to try to institute an authoritarian state. He's going to try and make you scared to vote in the midterms. He's going to try and make you scared to exercise your constitutional rights. And we cannot allow the fear and intimidation of the regime to work on us. The way we defend our rights is we continue to exercise them. That's why we will all be turning out on No King's Day on October 18th. That's why we're all getting involved in our local grassroots groups to figure out how we can take care of each other, engage in mutual aid, and organize. We have to focus on economic resistance. We have to focus on eroding the pillars of support under the regime, and we have to make sure that we continue to exercise our rights. No King's Day, October 18th. It's going to be awesome. I'll see y'all out there.